Creative Parenting with Nina Meehan is brought to you by Bay Area Children's Theater.
With close to 50 picture books published, Barney Saltzberg has traveled the world talking about creativity and where ideas come from. He lectured in China and Russia through a cultural exchange program through the United States State Department. Barney is passionate about working with children, parents, teachers, organizations on the art of making mistakes and finding play and creativity in our everyday lives. His books have won numerous awards, including NAPPA Gold Awards, Publishers Weekly, and Kirkus Starred Reviews. Most recently, Melinda Gates chose Beautiful Oops as one of the top 3 books every child should read, and I totally agree with Melinda. Full disclosure, I've known Barney for the last couple years. I had the honor and privilege through my work at Bay Area Children's Theater of adapting his book, Beautiful Oops, into a musical written by Austin Zumbro, our resident playwright and composer. It's one of my favorite projects I've ever worked with because I am just so personally passionate about giving kids and adults alike this power to allow ourselves to make mistakes and love our mistakes and celebrate our mistakes and recognize that our mistakes are an opportunity to make something beautiful. So I hope you enjoy Barney as much as I do. Oh, one more thing. You should know he is a recent grandfather. So he's had an opportunity to be a parent himself, but now is bringing creativity to his role as a grandfather. Enjoy Barney. Barney, welcome to the Creative Parenting Podcast. I am so excited you're here. So let's just jump right in there. You wrote this amazing book, one of my favorite books probably ever written, a book that I quote or talk about more often than anything else that I have done in my professional career, no joke, called Beautiful Oops. Can you tell me about the origin story of Beautiful Oops and why you think its message has resonated with kids and parents and teachers?
Well, first of all, hi. Nice to see you.
Hi.
I'm honored to be here. I actually, because I just did a talk with someone and I happen to have this, I can show you. Beautiful Oops was a result of teachers. I travel all over the world talking about what I do, the creative process, and 2 of the images came from, and I get to show you the actual ones. A book I did called The Flying Garbanzos many years ago. When my son was little, he got locked here in my office. He didn't get locked in. He locked a dog in my office. And I was working on a painting, the opening spread, which shows you where the family of the Flying Garbanzos lives. It's this block that all hand-cut paper, really detailed amount of work. And it was up on my desk, and we had this big black lab, and she tried to climb out of the window and stepped on my desk and the painting, and there were paw prints on it. And I felt horrible. She had a bad day, and she wrecked my picture. And I couldn't erase the paw prints. And I just kept staring at it. And I realized I could paint over the paw prints, and the clouds came from the paw prints. So the composition was really inspired by the dog. So that's a beautiful oops. The other image I showed was this sketchbook, and I talk about how my mom would never buy me a coloring book. She said, why would you color other people's art? Make up your own. I have every sketchbook from the time I was a little kid in a box, in 2 boxes. This one was brand new as an adult, and I spilled coffee on it. It was like this really great green with this brown splotch. And then when it dried, I traced it, and it became a coffee blob monster. And then as I'm holding it up, I realized that the coffee leaked underneath, and I traced that stain, and it was a gorilla looking that way. And so these pictures were all on my PowerPoint, and my teachers kept coming up and going, can you teach this? And I didn't know if I could teach it, but I was sitting out here in my studio, and I think I have it here. I tore a piece of paper in half, or not even all the way, and went, oh, I can make this talk. This is the mouth of an alligator. I could do this. So then it became this incredibly freeing scavenger hunt of what could I mess up and fix? And what I submitted was this. And that was the original book. And I actually was going to call it Beautiful Mistakes. And my wife said, mistakes is such a unforgiving word. Oops is gentler. And I think it was a
Yeah.
really good choice. So that's really where it came from. Long-winded answer, but now you know.
It's a great answer, and I love seeing all of those images because I know the book, obviously, since you and I worked together and we adapted it into a musical at Bay Area Children's Theater, but it's really fun to see those originals.
Yeah.
Uh, so why do you think its message has resonated with kids, parents, teachers, and people like me who fit into most of those categories?
Well, first of all, I mean, I've done over 50 books, and this book has resonated on a level that I was unprepared for. I mean, I'm on Instagram, and literally four to five times a week, I get a post from someone, a message with pictures that they're either their students or their children did, and with a note on how it changed someone. And I grew up as a doodler. I mean, I just always drew on things. So it didn't occur to me that this is like a really different way to think. But what I've noticed is, well, the notes come from people who have OCD people in their lives, who, once
Mm.
they saw this book, got them to loosen up a bit and to play more. And that's really why I'm on the planet, I think, to encourage that. And it's funny, I'm looking right here. I have a Chinese version, and they did a beautiful job um, copying my lettering style and colors. I've had books
I
translated
love it.
before, but not like this. And I was in China 10 years ago, 9 years ago, and was talking about this. The State Department sent me to talk, and they had a minder following me. And after 3 days of speaking, she asked me to stop because I was talking about change and how you can fix something if you don't like what it is. And I was blown away. Flash forward to they bought the book and published it in Chinese and asked me to come talk about it. And I think the recognition that we need to start being more creative and playful to problem solve, they got it. So I was honored to go, and it was wild. But I think it's kind of sparks the concept of looking at something a different way. And also, there's the adage of, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. But it is really that in a spirit beyond art. It's, I spilled something on my book and I drew a picture out of it, but I was expecting to do something and I couldn't do it. And instead of just being upset about it, because I didn't get to go to Disneyland, but I'm home, I got to notice the squirrels running on the fence. And I wrote a story about squirrels. Then something that wouldn't have happened. So I think it's just sort of, it's a mindset of being more flexible, which I think resonates, even if people weren't searching for
I
that.
I would say pandemic parenting. I mean, what parents have had to go through over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
First there is no school, then there's school, but it's hybrid. Now, it's summer again. Wait, are we going back? Are we not going back? Are we safe? Are we not? I mean, the kind of flux that people have been in personally, and then all the while parenting at the same time. What you're describing is such a powerful tool for kids and parents to be able to say, no, we can't do XYZ. How can we take the kernel of that and transform it and still find magic and still find joy? I think right now we're living in this time when that skill set specifically is so critical.
Well,
it's huge.
well, I can't even fathom. My kids are older, but what from the first June after we were locked down, my wife and I had bought tickets to go see Lady Gaga in Las Vegas. The most expensive tickets I've ever spent in my life. It was ridiculous. And then
But
it
it's
was canceled.
Gaga. I mean,
But it was canceled. And it was a big anniversary. And so then it's like, well, what do you do? So we hatched a plan. We got dressed up. I hadn't seen my wife in lipstick and makeup, and she was a knockout, even in her pajamas. But this was like special. And we found a recipe for martinis online, and I never made them before. We decided we were going to be in Vegas, so we should do something fancy. We found. I know. I took a big picture of Vegas on my TV set. I looked it up, and then I took a picture of us in front of it. a close up, so it kind of looked like we were there. And then we watched YouTube videos of Lady Gaga in concert, drinking our martinis, and it was actually really fun and romantic, and it was a lot cheaper. But we had to do something different. We could have just been
Yeah.
upset and grumbled about it, but we found another way to do it. So
We did. My kids were really, really sad that they didn't get to go to Disneyland, actually, your example. And during lockdown, we spent some good time watching those YouTube videos of people on the rides,
oh my
but
god,
we did the ones in Florida, like because my kids they've been to Disneyland because we can
right,
drive there, but Florida, we've never been to Disney World. So
right.
we experienced all of these Disney World rides, and like we would do it together and we'd eat popcorn and then we'd talk about it afterwards and be like, what part do you think would be the most fun? It was really, was it the same?
No,
No,
but
but
you
was
have
it a
to.
new kind of, it was fun. It was a
I
new kind of experience.
Somebody showed a video. They put their little toddler in a laundry basket, and they were watching roller coaster with them, and they would move the basket with the roller coaster on. So yeah, yeah,
I
and
love that.
you're laughing. It's having a sense of humor. Otherwise, you want to be in a fetal position under the bed. Yeah,
Totally. Oh
yeah,
yeah. So okay, so your kids are now grown, but they were little once, and I'm wondering, you are this natural creative self.
yeah.
How did that show up in your parenting?
I wish my wife were here. We make a complete brain. She's a lawyer. Um, I mean, from drawing on their lunch bags in the morning to I actually started writing children's music when my daughter was born. I think you can tell I play the guitar, or at least I collect them. I would always bring a guitar into the bathroom when she would take a bath as a little kid, and I loved the acoustics in there. And we would just start making up songs, and it just became it was just part of the routine. I mean, it didn't occur to me that I was doing anything other than entertaining myself and her, and then so just riffing and playing, it was always part of our relationship. And I'm trying to think what else. I mean, nothing comes to mind off the top of my head, but we just had I mean, even though my wife is a lawyer, there was just a lot of stuff in this house. I have very vivid memories of my wife, the kids, two dogs, dressing up and having parades in the house with kazoos. It just was sort of the climate here, the culture we created. And it was just playful, always.
Well, what I love, what I'm hearing is that it was so natural for you. It just was a part of the fabric of what you were doing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, as I've talked to parents over the last year and a half about creativity, so many people don't think of themselves as creative. And yet, the idea that you could go into a bath time and, maybe it's not the guitar, like maybe you don't play the guitar, but maybe
Doesn't
you can
matter.
hum, maybe you can play music and dance. Like there are so many options for how you can share creativity with your kids. And
Uh,
it's been so
yeah.
much fun for this podcast talking to parenting experts and creatives. And like that the through line is just figure out what's fun because it's okay to have fun.
Well, plus, I think people stop themselves when they say, like I do that too. Like I can't draw monkeys well, so figure it out. It's like find that shouldn't be the reason you stop. So you don't play an instrument, but maybe you have a little Tupperware cup that you're using to wash their hair. You can talk to them on it. You could use it as a little bongo with your fingers. One of the things I had forgotten about, I was back in bath mode. I used to always get a glass of water and pretend I was about to drink it when she was in the bathtub. And then I would sneeze and throw it up in the air and she'd get soaked. And this became a game. Oh no, this time I'm gonna, and play. And the message
Beautiful.
of we can play together is something so important for a kid to see. It's not just something kids do. I get that all the time. Well, you're like a big kid. Why should I have to stop? Like what's fun about becoming less playful? Not a lot. So cultivate it. Yeah.
And, I mean, one of the things I talk about is that play can be very serious, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like we as adults, we have this idea that if we're being serious, that somehow that is the absence of play. But in fact, talking about hard things with a spirit of play is a heck of a lot easier than talking about hard things with no play. I mean,
Yeah.
my oldest is now 13. So I have like a
Oh,
straight up middle schooler. So we're talking about all the hard things, body changes and internet safety, like all the it's bullying, you name it. And like, man, those conversations, like if I didn't come at them with a sense of play, why in the universe would he ever want to talk to me about that stuff?
yeah.
Like I wouldn't want to talk to me and be like, let's talk about puberty. Like, no, it's this crazy weird thing.
I can't even.
He
I
grew it,
won't.
he grew a foot in a year, you know?
One of the beauty, again, there's another age thing, but I used to push my kids in strollers and sing with them and talk to them, and now I'm watching parents who are texting while they're doing this, and or kids in the back seat with headphones on, and I found driving my kids as the main chauffeur. Um, there was something about talking to them while they were in the back seat. You didn't have to have eye contact per se. That was really, especially when they got to that age, we kind of had a no earbud. There wasn't earbuds, but headphone rule at that time. Like this is our little kind of quality time together, e- back to back to face, um, and to take advantage of that time. And my wife would bring up some very heavy subjects in carpool with other kids and my daughter in the car, much to my daughter's chagrin, but it was a great time to talk. Yeah,
I totally agree. That is a phenomenal time to talk.
yeah,
Okay, but now you have a baby in your life because you are now a grandpa. So
yeah.
congratulations on that. Have there been any fun realizations about grandparenting that you can
Oh, no, it's
share?
terrible. Um, it's funny, yesterday I put him in we got one of those jumper things. We found one, a used one, and he loves it, but I don't let him in there without picking up an instrument. So I was actually playing an acoustic bass while he was bouncing up down. My daughter was looking at us, and I said, "I don't know if you realize that this is how you grew up. You were so little, but I've always done this." And he moves to the music. So I don't know yet. I mean, he's only 8 months. Um, uh, we're just there's a playful energy. My wife last night said he clearly loves you. I mean, when I walk in the room, there's this eye thing, and
Mm.
we smile at each other, and I can, you know, just walking him around the house and talking about the pictures on the wall and showing what his mom looked like when she was little. I mean, he's 8 months, but having that dialogue, reading. I gave him the last night was the first time I got to give him a bath alone, and I showed him that if you take those little ducks and squeeze them, you can squirt. So it's
That's
it's
really
playing.
exciting.
It's playing. Yeah, he can't do that yet, but it's starting. So yeah, I don't know
But
yet. I don't know. I'm still learning.
what I'm hearing though, which is really cool, is that you've been able to come full circle by being a grandparent who has the same spirit of play that you had as a parent, that your own daughter is now able to see
Yeah.
where her roots are from in an even more specific way. And I
Yeah.
hadn't actually thought about that, but there's a really beautiful sort of from generation to generation passing down there. That's really
Well,
cool.
also singing him songs or hearing lullabies. I have a whole lullaby album out. Songs I wrote for her and my son that now her son's listening to. And
Oh.
and getting texts from her girlfriends and boyfriends who now have kids, and they're reading the books I wrote for my kids when they were little. So that's pretty wild. Yeah,
That's beautiful. That's
yeah.
really beautiful.
I'm old.
So let's go to
Yeah,
your childhood for a second here. So
yeah.
what was your childhood like? How did you play? This is one of the things that I really love talking to adults about because I find that particularly for adults who don't have necessary who have access to their creative play as adults, if you start by saying, well, how did you play as a child? So I'm curious, you talked about having stacks and stacks of sketchbooks. What did your childhood look like from a creative play perspective?
Well, my mom was uh, she wanted to be a painter, so there was a lot of art in the house. There was a lot of music in the house. Sunday mornings, we'd listen to public radio, our local station, comedy albums. So there was a lot of that going on. I was miserable in school. I had a lot of learning issues, and they didn't really diagnose that stuff then. My mom was a reading and studies skills counselor at UCLA, so kind of gave me enough tools to get through, but academically, I was really struggling. So anything that was remotely, fantasy, play, drawing, music, I was there. Um, One of the images I have, it stays with me, and I don't know if it's something that I'll have to put in a book one day, but I had this friend, Johnny Mejia, who lived on the other corner, and what we did too, and we were always playing. And I remember there were these little orange or orangish red little berries on a tree or a bush, and we plucked it and made crops in the dirt. And then we made little roads, and we had little cars, and it was a miniature farm, and there was a lot of that kind of play. We were just always doing things, uh, setting up blocks and putting marbles on them and letting them roll, and trying to make the biggest roadways we could come up with. Um, that's just what the world was. It's a way different time now. But I was given sketchbooks. I did start playing guitar at 8. I was terrible, but really committed. And I started a band when I was 8. So I was writing songs. And that's, stuff I did. And I spent an inordinate amount of time doing that. I had a little
It sounds
reel recorder. I'd make stuff up and play it back, and just always involved in creating something.
Your experience with school resonates with mine. I'm dyslexic. So as a
Yeah.
kid, particularly elementary school, until I got those tools, and I didn't really get them until 6th, 7th grade, honestly.
I'm still working on it.
School was it was it was just brutal. Like school just, it was like every moment there just wasn't a moment when there was ever a win except at recess, and I could go out and I could lead the imagination play with
Yeah.
my friends in 1st and 2nd grade or whatever it was. And so what you're talking about around, making farms and all of that, like all of that was so much a part of what I did as a child. And it's
Yeah.
been interesting watching my 3 grow up because they all were definitely exposed to art I mean, my oldest, he was a preemie, so he was born at minus 2.5 months. And at minus 6 weeks, he was in his first rehearsal. So like these guys were in
Right.
art from the very
Right.
beginning. And all 3 of them have expressed creativity, but it is all in different ways. And I've loved watching that. Toby's a builder. He did all this stuff with Legos. I mean, we just had so many Legos and ramps and cars, and he would make these things. And his 2 younger siblings, Meadow and Robbie, they are both epic imagination play and very physical kids. So they're outside. They don't need anything. They just need to be able to jump and move and flip upside down and create these worlds. And it's so inspirational as a person who's a creator myself to watch that. And I bet you probably took inspiration also from your kids. I mean, I've heard you say that you wrote books for them when they were
Sure.
little.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, but I think that there's also this myth that if you're creative, you're going to be an artist. And my wife's an attorney, a trial attorney. She's very creative. You have to be. It doesn't necessarily translate into you're going to be in the arts. Creativity comes in forms all across all platforms.
I mean, our trial attorneys have to be phenomenal storytellers.
Yeah.
Not in a false story way, but in a how do
That,
you how do you but how do
not
you
with
set up
her though.
no, but how do you set up story structure to
Absolutely.
I mean, which is, playwriting to story structure is not they're the same thing. In the end, you have to be able to connect to people's emotions and their hearts and have them see the world and with empathetic eyes and all those important things.
Well, and also looking at a problem and having a different perspective on it, which,
Yes.
yeah.
Going back to Beautiful Oops, looking at a problem, having a different
Yeah.
perspective. But you have a new book out as well. Can you tell us about We're All in the Same Boat?
Well, I guess, can you tell I wrote this during the pandemic? um, yeah, I've been, clobbered over the head with how divided people are. But I have to say, just as speaking to whom I am as a person, I always think about I had this roommate in college. We lived in an apartment, and we each had our own bedroom. And I would type. Well, I actually had typewriters in those days. And you can look them up if you don't know what they are. And it was noisy. And when he would go to bed at night, I was so conscious that my typewriter was on the wall. It was the adjoining wall from our bedrooms. I would go into the closet and type. I didn't want to disturb him. So I'm very conscious of that kind of just my presence.
Yeah.
We have a gate here, and my dogs like to run down the side of our house and bark. We have two new kids next door. I close the gate at night, so that side of the house is quieter, not silent, but quieter. So this book is really team building and showing what it's like to be part of a group. Now, a friend of mine did say, we're not all in the same boat, we're in the same storm. I get that. Talk about the pandemic, it's hit us all differently. So I'm thinking on a larger scale, the planet is a boat.
Yeah.
We are all in this together. So I can give you one little, this is dedicated to my grandson. There are also things that I love to do in books. There's a frog in this book, and he's never mentioned. So as a kid, I'd love finding him. And that frog is on every page doing something. So it just says, what do we say when a dog and a cat go rowing together with a pig and a goat? We're all in the same boat. I'll read you one more just so you get the idea. What happens when we don't agree on which direction to go? They're all pointing at different places.
Uh-oh, this is a problem.
We go nowhere fast. Okay? So each page gives you an example of the situation and what happens if we don't cooperate. And I am getting a little preachy in my old age, but I think it's a needed story to plant this seed at a young age.
I think you're allowed to get preachy in your old age because
Thanks.
that's a preach that I think we all can get on board with. It's so
Yeah.
important right now in so many levels. So one last question here, and then we're going to go into a 3-question speed round.
Okay.
Any specific thoughts for parents who are out there who are afraid to engage in art with
Yep.
their kids because they can't draw? I mean, we all know this story. I am a person myself who labeled myself as an I can't draw because in, 2nd grade, when the definition of you can draw is you can draw the puppy. And when your puppy doesn't look like a puppy, right, you suddenly start labeling yourself and you tell yourself these stories and then
It's
it gets
crazy.
deeper and deeper,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what do we say to these parents who are like, I can't draw, are you crazy?
I'd say that's the majority of parents. I do see, traveling around and going in to give assemblies, 4th graders walk in like this. Everybody up to then is like, yay. And by the 4th grade, developmentally they change. And usually there is an artist in the class that's getting all the praise, and everybody else decides, I can't do that. And that continues into adulthood. What I can say is modeling. If a kid sees you melting down, or whether you're in traffic, although my kids did see that a lot, or with anything that the kid's trying to do, it creates a space of, well, this is hard, distasteful, and it just kind of puts the yuck factor in it. But if a parent is willing to be silly, to try something even if they know they're not good at it, that telegraphs a method to try. It's the same with like, we want you to eat this vegetable. It's, if they're not seeing you eat it, well, why would I want to do it? It's, parents are watching TV and telling you to read. That telegraphs a really mixed up message. If they're seeing you read something you love, they're going to kind of want to do it too. So what I always suggest, I did this in China on stages in malls. It was wild. I wish there were videos. About a year before the pandemic, I was there. I was literally in Beijing and Shanghai on these stages. And I had them pass out blank pieces of paper and crayons to the parents and the children. And what I asked all the adults to do was to take the crayon in their non-dominant hand and to close their eyes and to make a squiggle. That's pretty non-threatening. Now give this squiggle to your child, have them flip it around, make it into something. They might look at the squiggle and go, it's a noodle doing yoga. I don't need to add anything. Or it's a dinosaur or whatever. Now switch. You make this, the kid makes the squiggle, give it to the parent. That, they had never played like that before. And I saw the joy. And if you get over this, I can't draw a straight line baloney. So draw a wiggly line. What do we do with that? It's so beyond art. It's so beyond that immediate thing you're doing with them. But the repercussions and the ripple factor for so many other areas in their life, it's worth pushing through your own fears. They'll learn a lot from it. And so will you.
That's
That's my
so
spiel.
amazing. And I mean, even just that little activity is something that I
Yeah.
think our parents could try. And
Yeah.
you could do that, anytime your parent, the official I'm bored moment, because how many times have we heard that during the pandemic? I'm bored, which in my household, boredom is an opportunity to create something beautiful is one of the things we talk about. Um,
No, but can we turn that into B stands for? I think you could do that. But all right, I'm going to do 2 plugs. One, on YouTube, Creativity
Mhm.
is a platform I have with this professor, Dr. Cindy Burnett. And Dr. Cindy Burnett retired from the school, but she is a professor in the science of creativity. And I
Awesome.
learned so much from her. And we do Zoom little exercises to kind of loosen that creative block that most people have. So we have a whole set of videos on YouTube on creativity. And then she has a platform now. It's creativityandeducation.com. And that website, for any parent or teacher who's like questioning what they can do, it's great resources. So sorry I had to do
Those
it.
are so fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will make sure that they are in the episode notes so people can go there. All right, speed round. Here we go. If you could invent one completely crazy thing that doesn't currently exist and would make parenting or grandparenting a little bit easier, what would it be?
Well, I think we're on the path, but my brain goes immediately to a robot babysitter so that you can be with your kid more and play. That's it.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
There it is. What is the first creative product, music, book, painting, play that you can remember feeling inspired by or connected to?
I wish my books are packed up. I wish I could find it. I had a book about birds when I was little, and there was a little about where each one was from, and there was a little flap from a little baby bird that was born in captivity, but it showed you this little baby in a cage. And I don't know, there was something so magical about lifting this flap. Now there's so many flap books, but at the time I was just spellbound. Also, the book Are You My Mother? Uh, I found that, I mean, we could do a whole psychological aspect of why I think that was funny, but the world, if you look at those pictures, most of them took place on white backgrounds. There weren't in any space that you could actually go to in the world. And there was something about it took me somewhere. And I just remember feeling like I was in a really special place reading those books. And I find that I am literally drawn to creating spaces like that in some of my books. But it sparked something in me being in that space.
Fantastic. All right, last one. What is one word or phrase that you say most often when you are out there in the world teaching kids or teachers or adults about creativity?
That's good because I thought it was like a word that I said like out there in the world in like traffic. I didn't really want to say that word. Um, what do I say? This is what I say. I say there are no wrong answers. You know, uh, try at something, and obviously math problematic usually is one, but my time with kids and teachers is either in writing or illustrating, and I love the idea that there isn't one way to go. That anything you come up with is beautiful. and you can then tweak it. It doesn't have to be the finished product, but don't think it has to be perfect. Just play. So that was a lot of one words.
Yeah, but they were all
Yeah.
perfect. They were all beautiful. Thank you, Barney. It has
Thank
been
you.
such a delight to talk to you.
Okay.
As always, I cannot wait to collaborate with you again someday in the world when theater is open and thriving again. But in the meantime, in between time, we will all get your books and we will check out your YouTube. And thank you,
Thanks.
thank you, thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you, Barney Saltzberg. What a wonderful human being. He is so insanely creative himself as an artist, as a musician, as a writer. It's just kind of creativity just lives in his soul. But I really love how he talks about using creativity as a tool to connect people and how you can just have simple doodles. The thing he talked about where a parent starts a drawing and then a child finishes it with the doodle or the opposite way around, that there are no right answers. If you have time, try that exercise at home. In fact, I sometimes do that with my littlest one. We add stickers in. So she'll do a doodle and then I'll put random stickers and then she'll tell me a story where she connects this doodle to the stickers and we'll both draw as we go. So if she suddenly introduces the sun, we'll draw a sun. And if she introduces a unicorn, we'll find a unicorn sticker. And we just do it on really big paper and it's so much fun. And there are no right answers. Thank you all so much for listening to this podcast. Please, if you have a chance to go and leave a rating on Apple Podcast or wherever you're listening, I'd really, really appreciate it. You can follow us on Instagram at nmehan or at BAC Theater. We are adding new episodes weekly, and we are so excited to have you as part of our creative parenting community. If you have questions, send me a line at nmehan. If you have ideas, please, please, please let me know what you're listening for and what you like. Have a good day. Stay creative.